Breakfast is done. Do you want a cuppa?
Okay.
Hello.
Gosh, Dad, stop!
It wasn't me. You need the normal Cocoa Pops. Not the mood yet? Okay. How you feeling, Susie?
Good.
Susie's not been well yesterday and the day before.
With diarrhea.
She didn't have diarrhea. Got to do a bit of interior work. This seat here looks actually quite good. The driver's one's a little bit sad. Now, unfortunately, you can always find a good passenger seat, and the driver's ones are always harder to get because obviously they get more use. Picked this up with the chook shed very reasonably. It looks terrible, but with the clean-up, I reckon that'll come up well. It's all just dust. And underneath it, and there's a boot from Richard, but underneath it, it is really, really good. It just looks terrible. Here's a picture of the driver's seat, or a shot of the driver's seat. You can see how poorly repaired it's been. Looks an absolute mess, so I'm going to have to do something with that. It's all sort of sunk at the bottom, and there's rips in it, and gathered, and all that sort of stuff. Someone's put new webbing in, which looks fine. Take a look here, and you can see it's just been tied, and of course it's all sunk back through the bottom. Otherwise the webbing seems to be in reasonable nick, so I can leave that and perhaps redo these bits up underneath the back of the squab. Now, the seat I picked up from the chook shed yesterday, which looks so dirty, is actually cleaned up very, very well. It's in remarkable condition. Now, it is a left-hand seat, a passenger seat, and I'm hoping I can modify it to fit the driver's frame. I don't know how well that's going to go, but we'll certainly have a go at it. And I reckon whatever the case, it's going to look a lot better than this thing. This is gold. Look, they've used copious amounts of glue. I don't know what that is, to sort of glue the seat back together. Look at it all here. Absolute mess. What he's done is he's actually tied knots in the webbing and brought it round and hooked it into the bottom of the squab cover. Even to the point where he's run out of materials, so he's gone for the speaker wire. It would take me hours to think about how to do this. That is so knackered. Now here's the other cheapy seat from the chook shed. This one hasn't been touched, so as I pull it apart, you can see this is Pirelli webbing, it's all shot. But when I pull it apart, you can see all the fixtures are still there. These staples are still here, which I can reuse down the bottom and everything. This one hasn't been touched by the look of it, so I can see exactly how it's meant to fit and how the webbing is supposed to be laid out. Now this is just a very quick dry fit over the old frame, and of course we haven't done all the webbing or anything yet, but you can see it's a little bit short here where it went over that tunnel part. This will all fit on fine. I can cut that and tuck it under and fit it with its clips. This side here is a tiny bit short, but I reckon it almost reaches there. I reckon if I stitch along here to there and down, look, it'll have a seam there. I can do that myself. I can stitch that myself using parts off the old seat, and I reckon it'll be a discreet little line, but I'll tell you what, I don't reckon it'll cost anything to do. Right, so this is the frame that came with the good seat. This is a passenger seat, and you can see down here it's got all its little anchor points and all this sort of stuff. All the webbing's intact. This is the frame I've got to use, and this is a lot less nice. Someone's fiddled with it. It's lost a lot of its fittings, but the basic frame's alright, and I can transfer or put new webbing in, and it's a strong elastic, and these are a bit sapped out, so I might have to replace some of those too, but there's 4 full lengths I have to put in. I'm just a little bit worried that I haven't got enough of this, but we'll give it a best shot. We'll see how we go. So we've put these on. These actually roll sort of twice onto the other when you staple it to give it a bit of reinforcement. Now, the other thing you need to do is put these little stays, and these sort of act as a pulley so that when you pull it taut, it's suspended there in the centre, which gives it the sort of amount of rebound you need. Once I've successfully done one, I'll take it off again, measure and cut the other 3, because I need to have 4 of them. You can use an awl. I'm using a jeweler's screwdriver, a very small screwdriver, just to get the thing in, and then squeeze them all the way home. And it goes over the first. Alright, here's the seat done. All new webbing on the top. There's not a bit there. I don't know why there's not a bit there. Maybe it doesn't need that sort of support, or that's sufficient. Beautiful match. Got some really nice, really tight thread.
Oh!
Sorry, I didn't warn you about that.
Yeah, it's just my hand.
Just hold it. Oh, wait, make sure the cotton can go. It's not cotton, this stuff's like nylon. You ready? That stuff is strong as buggery. You could hang a person off that stuff. It's really, really strong.
What, the fabric?
The thread, yeah. No, the thread. The thread is mega strong. Oh, Charlie, you are funny. I've kept a spare bit of vinyl off the old seat back for future repairs and so forth. We've also got the old covers, which are a bit ratty. There's still some good bits there. This had like an embellishing moulding under there. Yeah, sort of like that. Now that line that I've stitched in, actually, it looks a lot tighter than I thought it would. I made another one at work. I actually bent it the wrong way, but I don't need to use it. I wanted to cover that seam and sort of wrap it around and cover that in the blue vinyl to cover the line. You know, the line there, but I don't know if I'll bother. I might just leave it like that. I'll finish tucking it up and sort of get a hairdryer and shrink it back a little bit if I can, but it's looking really good, you know, for the total sum of about $32. It's not a bad seat.
Beautiful! I love it.
For me, it's electric fuel pump though.
Yeah, okay.
You're a team player.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
You drive an old Austin.
Okay, yeah, woo!
Having a bit of trouble getting these bushes out. I've had to punch out the inner part and the rubber and get this sleeve out by itself. I've tried to use sockets with bolts and threaded section to sort of try and push the bush through to the other side and inside that large socket, but it's absolutely solid. So I've ended up cutting it with a hacksaw, and I'm just punching it out now. There's still the other side to do yet. Oh, here we go. These are horrid. These things, they get so rusted in. Now, what I'll do is I'll clean this out with a bit of wet and dry in here, and when the new bush goes in, I'll just put a slight smear of grease on and pull it in level with a threaded rod, so it just pulls in and seats nicely. I've got to do the other side, yeah. That's one down. What's interesting with this is one of the cylinders that came off is pretty well solid. The second one's not that free either, but it's got a stainless steel sleeve, so I might take that out and have a look. Just giving the rear axle a little bit of a paint job. I got one of the springs off, fixing a couple of things on that, so I'll just let that dry. And with me today, I have my daughter, who's literally being a pain in the bottom. Say hi.
Bye.
That's what you said the first time. Okay. Oh. Is there going to be bunny porn?
Dad!
Bunny porn. There's normally bunny porn.
No one wants to see that.
What, bunny porn?
Much less your face.
Oh.
Are you filming?
Yeah, well, I'm intrigued at the way you're printing. You're going to hurt someone. Put those down. Grab these. Here we go. Don't pull it, because you're just... No, grab these. Just cut it down there. God. Got to stick the back seats in. The unfortunate part is this one looks in pretty good nick, at least. It's got lovely padding underneath, but it's sort of torn in a couple of places. Look, it's been slashed with some sort of knife or whatever, so that's a bit of a shame. But I can use that upholstery to fix this bit here. Now, that's actually a really good squab cover, but the top's been sunburned, so that's no good. So I can cut bits of this cover off line up the pleats and run a bit of piping or something along there. That'll fix that up. Now for the bottom, I've been back to the chook shed, and this looks similar to the other one I bought. Quite dirty, but in really, really good nick. And the other thing is, it looks a bit rusty and a bit manky underneath, but it doesn't matter because I can take this cover off and use it on the other frame. These seats are relatively simple. They've just got these staple type clips which just belt on the ledge and hold the trim on. But the other type of clip is the C-clip. Now these are trimmer's pliers. These are C-clips. Well, they're not proper ones. I'll tell you what they are in a moment. Proper C-clips are sharp at the edges, and they're designed to go in the pliers and just encircle the framework of the seat to hold the trim on. Now these can be hard to get, and the only places I know where to get them are actual motor trimmers. But the secret behind these ones is they're just netting clips from the fencing section of, something like Bunnings. So you don't need C-clips per se. You can just use these things as a good substitute. And another one bites the dust. No tears, but still a little bit of dirt. I'll give that a good clean just before I put it in the car. Charlie the driver. Yeah, it didn't work. You were going to drive off on me, weren't you? You were going to drive off on me, weren't you?
No.
I'll tell you what, we're going to have some fun with this one, restoring it, aren't we?
Yeah, we are.
Some fun restoring it. So, we're going to think of some colours and all that sort of stuff. Right, getting ready to start this thing. I've bought a new battery, one of these great Bosch batteries. I've used these before. In fact, all my cars have got them in. They're a 3-year warranty, not a 2, like a lot of batteries do. And very, very competitively priced. They don't much look like an original BMC article. I ordered one of those Lucas stickers from Britain. I'll put it on. It's probably a bit of a waste of time. Battery mat's cut. That's the mat that reduces the likelihood of acid causing any damage to the car. So I've got that ready to go. Got to make up some battery terminals, or a battery terminal, because the one that the car had is now in the Austin, and I'm just going to leave it in there. So I'll make up a new one. Not much point in just cribbling this in. This is a fine type copper lead, so I'm going to use this old iron, this old 130 watt Burco that my father bought about the time I was born. But big copper tip means a lot of heat can get into that, and I can tin it. Put that in, put it in the car, and we'll start the car. Alright, so the battery's just sitting there. I haven't clamped it in yet, and this positive's just sitting here. But before I put any power through, I just want to give it a quick visual check. Have a good look around the car, just to make sure everything looks in order with the wiring. The first thing we need to make sure of, because we haven't got the dash top in, I've left the dash top out because you can see it's all nicely clipped behind there, but I just want to make sure there's no chance of a short circuit anywhere. The cigarette lighter feed, I'll leave it in a place where it can't get up to no good. So I can keep an eye on that. That's the only raw positive wire that I know isn't connected. It's also a good idea to have a fire extinguisher handy. I haven't unwrapped that one yet. But before you tighten anything up, or before I tighten them, I just give them a tap just to make sure there's no obvious shorts anywhere. If there was a short somewhere, that'd have a big spark there. If I turn the ignition on, there'll be a little spark because there'll be power going to the coil. And some of the wipers or lights or whatever could be left on. So I'm going to go and get a key, get the keys, and we'll have a go at starting it up. Oh, the parkers are on. Oh wow, Wolseley badge. Oh, how about that? That actually looks really, really cool. So I do have to change this button because it's not for an automatic car. Wow, what's the chance of that? That was real easy. Sounds like it's got a bit of tappet noise, but I checked all that. I might have to recheck it. I've got the exhaust exiting out under here, which is a bit less than ideal, but it's got to go down to a muffler shop and have some repairs done. Got beaut oil pressure. There are 3 reasons why you still need to use a cigarette lighter. I'm going to change this one. The old one's sort of fallen apart inside and is inclined to move around. I don't want it to short out. So for the sake of $5, you can buy a new one and just change the connector at the bottom. There's 3 reasons why you need this. One is if you smoke and you want to light a cigarette. I want to have that so it's nice and clean for the receptacle on the sat nav to go into. And the other one is if you don't smoke but you vape, you still need to charge your electronic cigarette, you can use one of those as well. Here's new bushes to go in now. Normally these have a taper on them, but it's not immediately obvious. You can sort of see. Now if I put a straight edge against this side here is slightly smaller than that, so I'm going to put it in this way. Just a very light application of grease on, just to help it, and also that'll sit in there over time and it'll prevent rust. So the next person that comes to do these bushes shouldn't be faced with the same heartaches and headaches that I've been sort of faced with. It's probably a bit easier getting it in from that side. Now these bushes, on the edges of them, sit a bit proud where the inner bush pokes out a little bit. So I'm going to use a socket to protect that. I don't want to damage the bush, and a large washer on this side. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put a large washer through here so that I'm pushing against this side here. This will be quite flat. If I go to put a socket on there, it might not sit quite as flat. It might be a bit off, which means that this won't pull in straight. So for the moment I want it to pull in dead straight against there. Now, as the bush goes through, this protruding edge here coming through the other side, I'll transfer over once it's in down here somewhere, so I know that when I put that on it can come through without it interfering with the flat washer. You can see it's starting to move in now as I wind it in. Almost out of the woods. You can see the bush is most of the way in. It's only sticking out about 1/8 of an inch or a bit over, so I'm just going to put this here just so that that edge can come through. Beautiful. Look at that. That's perfect. I've committed the ultimate no-no and I've cut a few bolts. Now whenever you cut a bolt, you've got to wind the nut on first, cut it up, put it in a vise, cut it, and then unwind the nut over the thread, the cut part, so that way you know you're going to be able to screw it in. With high tensile bolts you should never do that. You shouldn't be cutting bolts. These are just holding on suspension bump stops, so it doesn't really matter that much, but on an important component you would never ever do that. These cars traditionally use 2 types of flares. They use a double flare, which has a little sort of conical rebate in the bottom, and a ball flare, which is solid at the bottom. And you can see in the bottom of the cylinder there's a conical protrusion, which is what the double flare sits in. It's a good idea to pull that nut back and just make sure it seats properly before you fit it. And other fittings such as these use the ball flare, and that sits in there and sort of wedges itself down the bottom. This is a lovely brake adjuster. Good idea to make sure if you ever put lubricant in here, because these do seize up, to use a high temperature bearing grease, because that way you won't get any of the grease sort of melting and flowing all over your brake components. These have a square drive in the bottom of them, and as you rotate this adjusting screw, the square drive pushes against these angular steel fittings, and what happens is they pull out. Now when you adjust these, you have to sort of adjust them till they seat. So if you adjust them half away and the brake drum feels stiff, it's no good because it can work its way back. So you have to sort of go around a full quarter turn, if you know what I mean, because every quarter turn the thing will return. As you wind it in, these things sit out, which means your linings are sitting against the drum and they're adjusted more that way. I'm always wrong about how long it takes to do these jobs. I keep stopping at having cups of tea. Oh, yum. Now, very important to keep your brake system healthy. Change your brake fluid every 2 years or so. The reason is brake fluid basically is a sponge for moisture, and you can see in this old front wheel cylinder all that rusty sort of residue and deposits. Absolutely dreadful. And of course it ends up seizing cylinders and all sorts of things. But normally what they do is they re-sleeve them with stainless steel. Now these are brilliant. This is an original one that came off the car. And there was a couple of marks, a bit of 800,000 grit wet and dry, and they come up like new. They're absolutely superb. So when we assemble these, I like to use quite a lot of rubber grease. And always make sure you put these in the right orientation. Bit of grease on the spigot, and then put this over. It'll just slip over nicely and find its own way home. You want to also lubricate inside the cylinder. Now the problem with these stainless ones is there's a lip there, and you don't want to cut the seal on that lip, and I've taken my gloves off because I want to have a bit more feel. but you need to make very, very sure it goes in properly, and they can be just a trifle tricky to get in. And when you get it in, just have a good look around just to make sure that seal looks like it's sitting properly, and work it home slowly, and that should be good to go. The next thing is these funny boots here. Now these boots, quite floppy things, and they also sort of look like they're being cut, but that's the way they are, and they slide over. Now if you try and get that clip on, it'll just gather and tear it. So I always like to put just a tiny bit of rubber grease. Don't use anything but rubber grease on these brake components. And there you go. All good. Alright, a couple of things we've done. New brake lines with new copper washer. You always have to put a new copper washer in. I've got that taped up at the end so no foreign muck can get in there until it's time to install it. Brake lines are all sorted at the back, so that's ready to go back in the car. We'll look at the brakes now. We've got 4 machine drums with matching linings here. Now the linings have been left in the drums because each set of linings are bonded to suit these drums. So this is the stuff that has to go in now. When you put brake linings on, there's only one way these can go because there's a square there for the handbrake. The handbrake, of course, pulls on that lever and locks up the brake. It's important when you put these together, you keep in mind the direction of wheel rotation and your leading edge. This wheel's going to go this way, obviously, because the differential is facing forward, and so the shoes are shaved and chamfered back this way, and that's the way we're going to go. The other thing you want to do is you want to put these springs in before you put the shoes in, by just lacing them over, because you can't get them in after the shoes are in. Nice new machine drums. Okay, and we can do a sort of a preliminary adjustment. It's probably about right there. If I go around to the next one, that's a bit stiff, so I might just back it off one. Of course, when the wheels are on, I'll give it another adjustment there. Hey. Daylight savings finished. It's a real pain in the neck. I can't get things done that I want to. Thanks, miss. That's cool.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
So long, farewell.